Rye. Thanks for being on Oldtime Central.
That's my pleasure.
Would you tell us a little bit about how you got started playing old time?
No. Well, my folks played old time when I was growing up, and they played in a contra dance band for 30 years or something. Mm-hmm. But I never really played with them, despite having played lots of instruments around the house growing up. And then finally I was in college. You know, it was always more fun when my parents would go away and I could stay at their house and feed the dogs and party and stuff. But they finally convinced me to go to Clifftop. And I did, as an accordionist, I guess. An accordionist who knew how to play guitar. And, you know, I just fell in love with it even as a non-old-time musician. Mm-hmm. And I would always play guitar along with jams. But I never really had a blast playing old-time until I started playing banjo-uke. Okay. Which picked up some techniques from Mark Hellenberg. Actually, a banjo ukulele from Mark Hellenberg. Okay. That my parents got as a gift for me when I started showing an interest in ukulele. It sounds like I'm 10 years old, but really I'm 28 or 29 or something.
And when was that? When did the banjo uke start happening?
I think about 4 years ago.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, because Facebook has just started showing me those memory photos of me with a banjo uke. And so
how did you manage to
about then
grow up in your parents' household and not play any old time if you were playing music?
Well, didn't your parents do anything that immediately made it uncool because they liked it?
Well, okay. That's fun.
Yeah.
But you were playing music.
I was playing music, yeah. I played a chromatic button accordion that my parents got me when I was 18 for Christmas. Mm-hmm. Well, no, they got me a toy accordion that they got tired of hearing. One of this little, harmonica in a box. And, I was never, as my parents always say, if I wanted a new Nintendo, I had to save my money. But, if I wanted an instrument, it was almost just like, here you go, son. Right. Very encouraging that way. Right. Which I'm really grateful for.
Sure. Yeah. And when was the first Clifftop then?
Oh, man. It was, 2018 now? So I was probably 2009 or 2010, I want to say.
And that's when you went with your accordion?
Yeah. And at that point, it was just all my friends. We'd all be hanging out and just talking and partying, and then all my buddies there would want to go off and play tunes, and I'd be like, damn it. Can't we just sit around and talk to girls and party and stuff, right. And then so naturally, I learned to play along on guitar with the tunes. And I remember, learning how the tunes go and the process of learning to hear the changes and having, people tell me, it's the wrong chord or it's this chord and that. I think being around it my whole life and falling asleep on the floor of contra dances, that my parents' band was playing. Right, something really helped drive it into my mom playing banjo when she was pregnant with me and stuff, right. Just always there. So I knew a lot of the tunes because a lot of those contra dance tunes are old-time tunes.
Sure.
A lot of them aren't. Right. I started playing banjo uke along with the tunes, and then I really started having a blast. Yeah.
So it wasn't immediate going to Clifftop and being like, oh, this is actually cool. It's not just my parents.
Well, it was immediate. Not necessarily I'd say the friendships came first. Right. And then it was just, this is the music that all my friends play. So I want to play it too. Because before, it was, this is the music that my parents play. That's the last thing I want to do. Right. That's why I, listened to hip-hop for 15 years, before getting into old records and stuff. Right. Well, I don't collect records, but getting into, digital recordings of, wax, 78s and stuff.
But then the irony of the universe came around and actually gave you friends who were playing old time. So you're like,
oh yes, as always. It's sort of like growing up in my little liberal arts college town. Growing up both being sort of this hippie and also rebelling against this sort of hippie community in which I was raised.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. Self-loathing hippie? I don't know if that's a thing.
Uh-huh. So talk to me about banjo uke. How's that? When was the epiphany?
Yeah, I'd say it was 4 years ago. Well, I really got into playing these calypsos and singing all these songs there, and then at Clifftop. Yeah, it was the first year I showed up with the banjo uke at Clifftop. I only had it there 2 years. And then we put it together a neo-trad band, and we won first place. And that was great. And the next year I had a lot of fun playing banjo uke. But then the next year I showed up with a fiddle, and it was Forget the Banjo Uke.
Right.
Actually, I've been playing it recently. I brought it back from Clifftop this year to have something else to busk with alone.
Right.
And because anyway. So I've been playing it more recently than I have for years.
Right.
And grown my fingernail out. Girlfriend loves that.
But now you're living in Leipzig.
Yes.
Since when?
On and off, but at least, for 2 years, sort of on the beginning part, 3 months in, 3 months out.
Right.
But I've had an apartment there for a year.
Right.
Well, a couple apartments, but yeah.
And playing old time and other stuff down there?
Yeah, old time or something like it. I found a buddy. We play in a band called Ohio Cream Cookies. He's English, but he really loves this Americana stuff, and he really thinks I'm like the real deal. When I first met him, he was like, "Wow, you sing with an American accent." But I haven't found so many people into this kind of music in my area. Mm-hmm. There's a small group in sort of a suburb of Leipzig that gets together and plays out of a Mel Bay book.
Okay.
But I'd say, I don't know, they do it a little more German style.
Right.
I want that to sound horrible.
Right.
But yeah, just sort of sitting around the book and
right.
doing it that way.
Right. Well, it's got to be a lot harder if you don't have living examples.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
to learn from.
Completely
then you have
out
to,
of the culture.
Right.
Totally. And it's cool that they just sort of stumbled upon this, just out of nowhere.
Right.
And sort of have this group of folks that does it.
Right.
And I see them around sometimes, but we don't really play together much.
And when you play with Jamie, what's the reception like down in Leipzig?
People usually dig it. It's something different from what people usually hear on the street, on the streets there, and in bars and parties or whatever. We usually get a good reception. It's always worth it. There'll be 100 people walk by if you're busking on the street, or a bunch of people in the bar and no one's really paying attention. But there's more often than not, there's that one man or woman that they just think it's so cool and they never heard anything like it in their
right.
whole lives. Right. And it's just like, those are those moments that make it
right.
really, really great.
That's when they walk up and say, "That's amazing Irish music you guys are playing."
Yeah, right. Well, it's funny, in the States, if someone confuses old time with bluegrass,
right.
we give them, we give them a lecture about the differences and the distinctions. But in Germany, if someone says, "That's really great bluegrass you're playing," I just thank them.
Right.
Because, I'm just so happy they don't think it's Irish.
Right.
Because, oftentimes if Germans hear fiddle being played not like a violin,
right.
That's what they assume it is. Because,
the only reference point they have.
Yeah. And it does sound more like that than Bach.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Huh.
But received pretty well.
So now that you've gotten over your adolescent aversion to old time, what do you enjoy about it? You can play lots of things.
I like the community and the people so much. I think it's such a unique community where traveling anywhere in the States or around the world, if you need a place to stay and you're an old-time musician, someone in the community can plug you in somewhere, and you can not only stay on their couch, but you can sit and play tunes with them.
Right.
And you can play,
right.
Cumberland Gap, how they play it,
right.
where they live, or this and that.
Right.
And you always know, you can trace by, you know all these same people,
Right.
It's a great way of meeting people.
It's kind of like a global musical Airbnb.
Yeah.
You don't pay money, you just have to learn
Right.
an instrument.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of, couch surfing with, where your only credential is that you're an old-time musician.
Right.
And then whatever, bad things anybody has ever said about you in the community, that's all going to, oh, did you hear he's like this, or did you hear
Right.
she did that,
Right.
And all the incestuousness, and it's an interesting. So what I love about old time is not the old time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I haven't really played much old time the past couple of years. But as it so happens, these same groups of folks, particularly younger folks, that are into old time and come to Clifftop and these festivals, are also into that whole sort of satellite of old time-esque tunes under the same labels that some of those
Right.
old time, those 78s were made, and so you get a lot of these like black string band kind of
Sure.
stuff and jug bandy kind of things,
Right. And parlor tunes
and
rags
all sorts of things, and even proper jazz, violin stuff like Mississippi Sheiks.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it was marketed as that sort of,
Right.
that this is this sort of down home folks music kind of stuff, even though it's just a few guys in Chicago that pretty well trained, just cranking this stuff out. But
Right.
incidentally, my band, well, the Ohio Cream Cookies, we play quite a few Sheiks tunes.
Okay.
And
Nice.
but all sorts of blues and rags and
Right.
that kind of thing. But yeah, at Clifftop, I didn't play any old time this year.
No?
Just hung out with my buddy Chris, and we just screwed around on a lot of these old mandolin blues kind of
Right.
things. Not playing along to fiddle tunes on the mandolin. I don't think a mandolin should be played that way. And chopping, I don't think I know any full chords on the thing.
They're hard. No need to learn them.
Yeah, right. No one wants to hear that.
Nobody needs 4 fingers on an instrument.
Yeah. Well, if I wanted to do that, I'd pull out the banjo. You can just go.
But do you also have the sense that there's more, a lot of the younger people in the old time scene are, let's say, more liberal with the genres that they're interested in playing. It's not quite
definitely. It's not. I mean, there's young people that are very liberal politically that play bluegrass without any of these ideas of these associations and old people telling them, "Don't you know that Republicans play bluegrass and liberals play old time? You're messing up the natural order." But yeah, kids these days, music is music.
Right.
They don't care what gender pronoun someone prefers, and they don't. As long as the tune's good, they're gonna play
Right,
it.
right.
Which is great. Now I grew up in a house even before I cared about old time. I knew that it wasn't bluegrass, and I knew that I didn't like bluegrass.
Right.
But I didn't really know that. I was just told that.
Right.
Son, you don't like bluegrass. We don't like this music. Those people are no good for you, and that music's no good. It's a show-off culture. The beer's not as good, and the moonshine is too sweet. That kind of thing, But I've come to find that, there's a reason some of this popular music. Well, it's pop music. It's not folk. It's not folk music.
Not folk music. Right.
Not in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
It certainly is played that way too, but it's still just going to be compared to how Bill Monroe played it or something, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's all sort of coming, it's all mixing up, and
Right.
who knows? I can't say anything about bluegrass because I still don't know much about it,
Right.
you know.
But also just all the other genres, like you were saying, like the jug band stuff and the rags and the parlor music. It seems like a lot of the younger people are perfectly fine to include that in the
Canon,
the neutron, the electron cloud of old time, as opposed to saying, we have to focus on the nucleus all the time.
Yeah, oh no, absolutely. In fact, they very often don't play any of these old time tunes. I mean, there's lots of folks around there, and a lot of the punks and stuff that I only hear them playing, this, Georgia fiddling kind of stuff is,
right.
Sometimes the closest to old time that they'll get, because a lot of it is just this sort of wacky, wild, early jazz kind of stuff. And that's, I really dig that.
Sure.
I've always been into like novelty music
Yeah.
and just silly, weird stuff. I think
Yeah.
Old Time did a lot to open my ears up and my mind up to like, tunes that don't follow a specific format
Right.
of 16 bars or 12 or 8 or whatever it is, and being able to hear, be able to appreciate a crooked tune.
Right. Just different sounds.
Requires hours of listening and sitting around and having your brain hurt, and basically until it doesn't anymore.
Right.
From listening.
Right.
Cool. But I just think it's great that so many people that are, they come to all these festivals, but they don't really play the Old Time. They play this other stuff, and a lot of the time, I mean, it might just be an age thing, because a lot of these old timers, they say, "Oh, I used to be really into that stuff when I was your age," because a lot of these cats were,
right.
But it seems, I don't know, it seems like people sort of settle down into Old Time and kind of got to slow down a little.
Right.
I've always said, it's people always tell me waltzes are important, but nobody really tells you why. I think you'll find out when you're old. Come here, Papa, look at this. At the end backyard shaking like this. Oh, Georgia, go, Georgia, go. You don't need nobody trying to Georgia, go. Well, I can shake it east, I can shake it west. Way down south, I can shake it fast. Oh, Georgia, go, Georgia, go. You don't need nobody trying to Georgia, go. Come here, girl. Come here right now. Out there doing a crawl, you don't know how. It's Georgia, go, Georgia, go. We don't need nobody trying to Georgia, go. Old folks better go to bed before we put down any young folks' head. Ask out a Mary, make better have to wait before I can buy her a cat.
Nice.